Hello everyone, Long Gun here. This video is about a little trick to find some gold. We'll play Claim Connect the Dots. So this is the main gold rush area in British Columbia, the Cariboo region. All of this entire area around Quesnel, Barkerville, Prince George, all this stuff down to the south, Williams Lake, Horsefly, Quesnel, etc. This is all of this land has gold in it. Just varying amounts, of course. So, just a little bit about the geology here. This big mine here is the Gibraltar mine, owned by Tesseco. This is the Fraser River, flowing southward here. And at Quesnel, it meets the Quesnel River, which is flowing westward out of the mountains and Quesnel Lake here. And this mine to the southeast is the Poly mine, owned by Imperial Metals. It's the one that had the big blowout and then it flowed into the Quesnel here and it was a big disaster. Not good, but lots of good gold and geology in this area. And then this is this area is likely. And if we zoom in a bit here, we can see the Bullion Pit right here. This was a huge hydraulicking operation, lots of gold. They stacked huge 1,000 ounce bars up taller than a man several times. I've seen the pictures. You can go in there and there's a little spot. Definitely lots of gold in this area, but they definitely took out the big nice streak there. And Quesnel Forks, another nice gold rush town. Lots of gold in this area all the way up here. A couple famous gold rush creeks up in this area. If we go a bit north here, we can see where Barkerville is, Wells, Richmond, and some of the other little gold rush towns and fields that are around in this area. The main highway flows this way. And we can see Hickson and Prince George up here in the north. All of this area has gold, all of it. I've been all over this area and you can just pan the ground and there's gold in it. But, of course, not enough to make money in most cases. Okay, so right now, gold is at record high prices in Canadian dollars. And fuel prices are relatively cheap, so this means that miners have really good margins. So this is the time when claims should be everywhere. There should be big premiums, it should be booming, there shouldn't be much vacant land. Or so you'd think. So what percentage of this area do you think is claimed? Some people probably think, oh, the big mining companies probably have it all. And several of the big mines do have very large mineral claims, but in British Columbia the mineral claims and the placer tenures are separate things. So the placer is the above bedrock, the surface material, the eroded stuff that they can run usually with gravity separation, little wash plants. They're basically for hobbyists, for families and that kind of thing. If they're super rich, a mining company might like them, but the mining companies are generally interested in these big operations like Mount Poly. And there's other strikes up here, Barkerville Mines and others. So the big question is, how much of this is claimed? Give you a couple seconds there to think about it. I know some people are like lots, some people are like, oh, maybe none, I don't know. Okay, so we're switching over to the MTO map here. This is Mineral Titles Online. It's the British Columbia system that they use for all of their mineral titles, essentially. They used to have to go out and stake things, and it used to be quite archaic, but now the power has shifted to the nerds, definitely. So now you can sit at home and prospect, armchair prospect, and save a lot of time and money before you go out in the field and yammer around. Increase your odds before you even set out is kind of the idea. Okay, so this is the same area that we were just looking at. There's Quesnel. You can see Quesnel Lake as a rough marker here, Quesnel River, and then the Fraser going down here, flowing all the way down to Danhurds, Pickerton, somewhere down in the south. And you can see kind of Wells and Barkerville is in this area. So now we'll put on the current title so we can see what the current mineral claim landscape looks like for the placer. And there you go. I bet that's not what a lot of you were expecting to see. And if you look at this it kind of makes sense in a way. Like there's large blocks of claim around the obvious gold rush centers, and then it follows the rivers, which have a lot of concentrating effect to build up gold deposits over the years. So obviously these claims are worth money and still economic. But it also shows a very odd looking distribution that you can hopefully use to make money here, and that's what I'm going to show you. Okay, now this may seem obvious to a lot of people, but it's obviously not obvious because all of these claims are open. And like I just said, gold's at record high prices, so these claims should be, like there should be a lot of claims in this area, and the number should be increasing. But yet, this map looks pretty much the same it has for several years. I've been watching this very closely. There's been some expansion kind of in the south here, but this map looks essentially the same it has for, I don't know, 7, 8, 9, 10 years, the time that I've been looking at this, which I find to be very odd. And there's been little swings and ups and downs depending on the gold price, but it still doesn't quite make sense to me. I think one of the main reasons it's like this is because of the online system. Like people are letting their claims lapse, there's less interest in it. It's kind of a dirty, unfun job, and for the most part, all the gold deposits in this area aren't economic, so no one wants to shovel gravel for $5 an hour or $1 an hour or less, so that makes sense. But now gold prices are way, way up, so a lot of these claims are worth money, a lot of money. And I've got claims just from looking at this map and this distribution, went there, and they're awesome claims full of gold everywhere that's now economic. And looking at this map, there's still many, many thousands of square kilometers of economic ground that's perfect for the hobbyist, because they can go in, get these claims for very, very, very cheap, like dollars per acre, and then prove it up into a small hobby operation. Get tens of dollars per acre, hundreds of dollars per acre if you prove it up and make it into a decent operation. And that's something that's feasible to do for a hobbyist, for a small person, for someone with very low amounts of capital. All you really need is kind of a little bit of knowledge, a very small amount of capital, and it's mostly just work, hard work, and learning things as you go. But if you save some time at this stage, then you can really increase your odds. Alright, the last thing I want to talk about before I get into a more detailed explanation of the trick I'm talking about here is, if you look at the side here, you can also put on the title history, so you can look at what previous claims have existed in the area that have lapsed. So gold's at record high prices, you should expect to click this and then see nothing, like just overlap. The current claims should exceed what exists previously because gold's at record high prices. That would just make sense intuitively. And let's click this, and what do we see? It's slowly loading in, the suspense. Alright. That is not at all what I expected to see the first time I loaded this up, as gold prices were really increasing. It kind of makes sense in a way that, like, you know, obviously if someone goes in, you mine out the main deposit, the claim's not really worth much. But there shouldn't be so many previous claims everywhere that are now lapsing and gone. Like, there's gold in all of these claims, I can almost guarantee it, just because this whole area is so infused with the geologic events and then all the erosion that have taken all these lode deposits and put them into the placer supply in all of this area, and it's just been carried through this entire area. I have no doubt that there's gold even in the middle of these center patches, just, you know, less than in the valleys and streams that have been heavily mined. The other part about this is this can help you lead to new ground. Because if you're looking at this distribution, suddenly they really start to connect. And this is what I was talking about with the connecting the dots of the claims. If you look at this, they now start to form very real patterns as you look at how they're connected. And if you will pull off some of the other layers maybe later, but a lot of the time these are following streams and valleys, and so they're logical extensions of the gold deposits that exist. And so people came in, they did some exploration, they mined, they left, they let it lapse, they died, who knows, there's lots of reasons why their claims come up. And nowadays the most common is a lot of the old timers hate computers. That's one of the most common reasons. Seriously, it's probably more than 50%, which is, it's kind of funny to me because I'm a nerd and I can just get all these awesome claims, but they get really frustrated by the whole process of being on a computer. They'd much prefer going there and staking a post. Alright, so you probably figured out what this trick I've been alluding to is. If you look at this, the current claim plus the previous history, you'll see these very clear patterns, and you can almost do logical extensions, do stuff like this, fill in the blanks, and these very, very often are now economic. Like, people maybe let this lapse 10, 15 years ago. It wasn't economic. Now gold's over 2,000 bucks Canadian. It's economic now. If you have a cheap, lean operation and you get some decent mats and equipment, don't go overboard. I'd spend your money on claims and getting the minimal level of good recovery equipment and then going from there. Keep it lean, because that's the secret to making money in this business. You don't want to spend $1 million and get $1 million or 900,000 bucks or whatever. That's what most people in this industry, in the placer industry, kind of do. And there's lots of breaking even and up one year, down the next. It's not a good business. But the hobbyist level is a good business, especially from the perspective of you invest a few $1,000s and maybe you can prove up your claim to being worth tens of thousands of dollars or more. So if you look at some of this stuff, you can just make logical, these are maybe good areas to prospect. Fill in the blanks. Look at this spot in the middle. And if we go to the south, here you'll be able, I found really good claims in all this area. Look, all this was previously held. No one wants it now. There's gold in all of this stuff, and probably economic gold. All the way here, through here, the Fraser. And I've done this the same in the south. You go to the famous gold rush towns that, of course, that has to be claimed, right? Like, that's public knowledge. It's all there. And no, there's free ground, awesome ground on the Fraser River loaded with nuggets. Nobody wants it. Nobody cares. It's quite bizarre. But eventually there'll be people like me and the other prospectors that will show people how to do this, and more people will pick up on it. And I think things will really start to change. So if we remove the title history here and go back to what's current, you can now see stuff like there's gaps here that are really obvious. Why are there gaps here? Like in this case, maybe this is a straightaway of the Fraser River, so of course the deposition isn't going to be as good as on, say, a 90 degree, but I don't know anything about this claim. Like, if you go there in person, look, like, do your own due diligence, pull up the satellite maps. Maybe there's nice slate and bedrock all along here, and this is just the biggest nugget trap ever, and then it's between a whole bunch of active gold claims, because this is a very raging gold-bearing river. So there's loads of good ground, and you can see here along rivers, along nice streams. There's lots of water access in lots of these areas, and you'll even be able to go up here into prime gold rush country, and look at this. There's cells available right in the middle of some, like, probably not the greatest cells, but if you're a hobbyist, you're a metal detectorist, and you get this cell for, these cells are they're worth $100 an empty cell for approximately 50 acres of land. So that's $2 an acre. That's nothing. And you'll be able to follow this, and maybe you find this guy has great nuggets, and then you can say, oh, well, I want this cell next to it, or follow this river a little bit downstream. This guy had light gold down here. I'm going to go upstream a little bit, and you just can endlessly prospect and use all this information. You could follow this extension out here and just go through previous areas that people have mined, because their tailings are now in many cases economic. You can just go to their stuff they left at surface, metal detect it, run some of it through your wash plant, get the place for $100. Wow, you've made some money. That's the exciting thing about mining. And then if you ever actually found a strike, wow, that's the really exciting part. You get all this upside, and it's easy and fun. You don't want to start off by spending a lot of money, and unless you're getting value for that money. Like if your claim comes with proven reserves and a bunch of equipment or something, that's all good. But just look at all, like it just blows my mind how there's open land everywhere. And that's one of the reasons I'm showing people how to do this, because like some people were like, you can't show people how to do this, they'll take all the claims. I'm like, there's so much land here that I could waste 100 lifetimes exploring it all, and then there'd still be ample land for everyone else, especially on this hobbyist level. Going beyond that can be risky, but at least you can prove out the land at that hobby level, and if you do find something, then mine it, or joint venture it, or farm it out to a junior company, or get a placer miner in there and pay you a royalty and let them take the risk for it. Lots of stuff can be done, but there's crazy land all over the place. So get out there and get prospecting.